Hello, it's Shelley F Knight, bringing you Positive Changes, a self-kick podcast. So today we're joined by Jordan Gross, and he is a Northwestern and Kellogg School of Management graduate, a startup founder, a TEDx speaker, and a #1 best-selling author. So hello, Jordan.
Hey, Shelley, how are you? Thank
I'm
you so
good.
much for having me.
Bless you. Thank you for being here. That's a
Yeah.
lot of things you've achieved there. This is fabulous.
Oh, thank you so much. It's really nothing. It's not anything special.
Oh, bless you. So I'm assuming you have a positive change. What happened in your life? When did you do this sort of like big transition to all these wonderful achievements?
Yeah, so my positive change, I wanted to share two stories, and one was about positivity because that's how I was able to make the second big change. But the first one had to do with a story when I was a little kid. And just to give you this story real quickly so I can focus on the second one, I was heavy growing up. I had glasses, I had long hair. You said my last name already, so you know it's funny, it's gross, right? So I had all these negative, seemingly negative characteristics growing up. And even though that was the case, I was still a very happy, upbeat, popular child. I was a good athlete. And after my favorite sport, soccer, I don't know if you're a soccer fan, but I'm a big soccer
No.
fan. So I just won a tournament. I was about 9 years old, and I just got off. I had my trophy. I think I was wearing my medal. And I went to lunch with a friend of mine and his family, with his dad and his two sisters. And we're sitting at lunch, and our waiter was a really nice guy, and he was, being very interactive, and he was giving us, things to draw on, and he was talking to my friend's dad. He was a really, really good person, it seemed. I'm sure he still is a good person. But as we were wrapping up the meal, he says to my friend's dad, he says, "So, are these three yours?" And he points to my friend and his two sisters. And me, the curious, upbeat kid I was, I said, "Hey, how'd you know that? You're right." And he kind of looked at them, and he looked at me, and then he looked at my friend's dad, and he just said, "Well, them three are skinny." And it was
Oh,
in that moment that I realized that I was different, right? Because sure, maybe I knew I was bigger than my friends, and I wore glasses and my friends didn't, and I had long hair and my friends didn't, but nobody ever said anything,
yeah.
right? I think it was just something that was always behind the scenes. But this was the first time I was really made to feel different. So in that scenario, I guess I attribute it to my parents, my friend's dad, and how he responded, saying, "Hey, you know what? He didn't mean it like that. Don't worry about it." I attribute it to coaches, teachers, my grandparents, my brother, whoever it was. In that moment, I decided to say I could either wallow in my pain because he called me fat, or I could use it to my advantage. I can think about what makes me different, and I can embrace what makes me different. So instead of saying, "Hey, I'm heavier than everybody, and that's a bad thing," I said, "Hey, I'm bigger than everybody, so I can power over them on the soccer field or on the basketball court." And if people said that my glasses were funny and they said I looked like a nerd in school, then I was just going to say, "Okay, you know what? I'm just going to get better grades than these people," right? So I
Yeah.
became very studious. And with my last name, people were already going to laugh at me and laugh at my last name. So I would always make jokes, right? People would
Yeah.
say, my teachers would say, "Is Jordan Gross here?" And everybody would laugh. And I'd say, like, "Ew, disgusting," right? And then say, "Yes, I am here." And finally, I did cut my long hair. So that was something that changed. But I am growing a long beard now, so maybe it'll come back. No, but anyway, so that's the story that kind of solidified my mindset. Always looking for the silver lining in things. One of my favorite
Yeah.
movies is Silver Linings Playbook, and the main story I wanted to tell about positive change was about a scenario in my work life. I was 4 months out of a fancy master's degree, like you said, at Kellogg School of Management. I studied business. It was one of the best business programs in the United States. And I decided to go into a restaurant management program. um, which was very different than the people around me. And I thought it was going to be something that was really innovative and unique and a great experience. But what it actually ended up being was something that was so traditional, very robotic, a very mundane experience. And many of my colleagues actually were so horrified by the intense and chaotic nature of our restaurant world management program that they would sometimes leave in tears, literally in tears.
Oh.
And one day I decided to put on my suit and go to work, and I had closing manager responsibilities. And I ended up, having to count all of the meat like patties that we had in the freezer late at night. It was like 2 or 3 in the morning. And then I had to enter that inventory into a spreadsheet in our office, send that out, and then I could leave. So very late night. I already been up for, 12 hours doing in stuff restaurant. Now it was the after work paperwork. So what ended up happening was I was in my suit, got these rubber gloves on, I'm counting meat, and I go back to the office and I realized that I locked myself out.
Oh.
So here we are again in one of those moments where things are feeling different. I was starting to
Mm.
feel maybe a little bit stressed, a little bit anxious. People were going to be wondering where my, inventory counts were because I had to send out an email to the entire, 1,000-person organization. Um, so again, it was kind of like this moment where I had to decide who I wanted to be. And I decided to be somebody who was positive and live according to values that really demonstrated my desire to live according to what made me most fulfilled. So instead of kind of freaking out that the door was locked, I just sat down on the floor, and I knew people were coming in 2 hours later, but that wasn't really the point. I sat down on the floor and I said, "What am I really doing here?" I just counted meat in a meat freezer. I just put in, before I was counting meat, guest complaints that their signature cocktail was not as good as they wanted it to be. Am I really adding value to the world? And the answer was no, I really wasn't. So it was in that moment that I said, "Look, I'm trying to be as positive as I can about this experience. I've been energetic. I haven't been going home in tears. I've been trying to take it for what it is. But I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave this job, and I'm going to figure out what makes me most fulfilled." And the next day, it was actually like a couple hours later because I already had to come back. I ended up telling my boss that I was leaving the restaurant world for something more in alignment with my passions, my purpose. And that change led me to helping other people with their positivity, helping other people find their purpose. And the way that I do that is through creative storytelling. So now I'm a writer, I'm a speaker, I'm a coach, and I really use positivity as a means for people to see their own situations through a different lens.
That is such a change, isn't it?
Yeah. Such a change, such a
It
change.
Yeah, and from quite a simple act, it sounds like, from the meat patties, locking
Right.
yourself out, then obviously something resonated from a past kind of situation, and you're just like,
Mhm.
actually, no, this is not what I'm here for. Do you know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah, and
Bless
and
you.
like you said, like a past situation, it was that waiter feeling different, right? And it was also, I was in New York City in one of the most expensive restaurants in this fancy program, and I've always been somebody who, in my experiences, I've always wanted to metaphorically feed the poor, right? I want to help people who don't necessarily have the ability to help themselves. But
Yeah.
there I was in the restaurant world, literally, I was feeding the rich. Like all the
Yeah.
rich people in New York City came to this restaurant, and I wasn't really doing anything good for them except, feeding them food. So yeah, 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 yeah.
So was your first book like part of this journey?
Yes. So right after that, I had no plan. I just quit because I knew it was right. And my first book was a guide to daily happiness based on a morning routine that I was doing. And what I said was, okay, my coworkers are leaving work crying, but I'm having a pretty good time, even though it's not the best experience. Why is that?
Yeah.
And I attributed it to my morning routine, and I wanted to share that morning routine with other people because it helped me overcome any sense of stress or anxiety. It helped me focus on optimism. Um, and really seeing the silver lining in the situation that I was in.
So what is your morning routine?
So
You
my
knew I was going
morning
to ask
routine,
that.
yeah, my morning routine is called getting comfy. So comfy is my 5 steps, and
Oh,
I
okay.
wanted to share it with other people so that, yeah, so it's C.O.M.F.Y, and I wanted to share it with other people so that I gave the opportunity to just make recommendations as opposed to give very strict demands, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I think we all work best. I don't think we ever want to be told what to do, but rather we can be given some suggestions so that we could figure out what works for ourselves.
Yeah.
So the categories are: C stands for calm. So within calm, maybe I'll wake up one day and I'll feel like doing some yoga and I'll get calm in that way. Or maybe I'll wake up one day and I'll feel like, I don't know, doing some just quick deep breaths and I'll get calm very quickly. Or maybe I'll want to go do the dishes and that calms me down. So those are the different calm activities that I can do. And then O stands for openness. So openness is basically getting all the thoughts out of our heads and then putting them out there into the world. So you could either open up to other people, and you could do that by sending messages, emails, making a phone call, or you can open up to yourself and you can journal. You could write down gratitudes,
Mm.
accomplishments, strengths, weaknesses, whatever you want to do. So that's openness. M is really simple. It's movement, right? Whether
Yeah.
that's 5 mile run or a 5 second quick burst of energy. Getting moving is so important in the morning because it really literally wakes up your mind and your body. F is my favorite. It stands for funny. I think that the best way to go about this world is yes, serious things do happen, but so long as we don't take ourselves too seriously, that's going to keep us from a lot of the negative emotions that may, sort of overrun people's lives, right? So I like to wake up, I like to watch a funny video of like a puppy or a baby or something, right? Just to get me smiling and laughing first thing in the morning, keeps me in a good mood. And finally, why. And why stands for you or your choice or your passion. And it's the whole reason why having a morning routine is important. It's because it's an opportunity so that even if you're the most selfless person in the world, you still take some time to focus on you, to be selfish, so to speak, so that
Yeah.
you are taking a little bit of time for your own self-care so that you can help others in the best way possible. So in the why, you can cook, take up a new hobby, sing, dance, code, whatever, you learn new language, whatever you want to do, that's truly yours. That's a great way to end your morning routine. And then because the rest of the day is a lot of the time based off of what you're doing for other people. So just end that morning routine with something that is yours.
So it's quite simple, isn't it? I
Yeah,
like it when you just go
so
like
simple.
5 things and you've got the
Five
list
things, five
there.
categories. Yeah, five
5
categories. You
letters.
can make it all your own. Uh-huh. Yep.
That's fabulous. So you
Yeah.
apply that every day. That's your tools and techniques, and others can do it as well. Do you work with
Yes.
affirmations at all or sayings? Do you work with other words as well?
Yeah, so this is great because, and I don't know if you are familiar with The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. Do you know that book?
No, not at all.
Okay, so I thought maybe that's where you got it from, because my inspiration for my comfy morning routine came from this guy Hal Elrod's The Miracle Morning Routine, and his acronym is called the SAVERS: silence, affirmations, like you said, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. So when I read that book, I didn't have a morning routine yet, and I tried the SAVERS, and when I got to A for affirmations, it felt a little awkward to me.
Yeah,
So I don't personally practice affirmations, but for other people, if that's what works for you, then by all means, I would never be here to judge or say don't do that,
yeah.
because if it works, then that's what matters the most.
And they are quite strange when you do them because you just think like,
Yeah,
is anyone listening? Am I talking to
yeah,
myself? Are
exactly.
they going to come true? Where's the
Right.
science? But
That's
I still
right.
say them. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so important, maybe I just don't label them as affirmations. Maybe I use positive self-talk. So if I'm not in the right mindset, I'll just say, "Hey, Jordan, Jay, I call myself Jay. Hey, Jay, it's going to be an amazing day today, right? You're here. Look at where you are. Look at the sky. Look at what's going on. The sun is beautiful." So maybe I do affirmations, but I don't have any written down that I do consistently every single day. Yeah, but it's obviously great if it works for you.
I'll let you know.
Yeah.
When everything beautifully manifests, it'd be wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're obviously really positive. You've got this positive mindset. To me, it's rhetorical, but to others out there, why is it so important to be positive?
Yeah, it's such a great question, right? Because to positive people like you and I, all we want to say is just like, why wouldn't we be
Yeah.
positive, right? But we can't say that to other people. And I think what it comes down to is maybe not promoting the positive, but dissuading people from the negative, right? So
Yeah.
why would you want to not be negative as opposed to why would you want to be positive? So just a quick story. um I talk about my grandparents a lot, and they kind of have four different approaches to life. And I'm gonna hone in on this quick story on my two grandmas, Grandma Ellie and Grandma Harriet. And one is very positive and optimistic, and one is very pessimistic and negative in a very lovely way, but where we could laugh at it. But there was one scenario in which I remember my brother, well, he's 4 years older than me, so I was probably 15 years old at this point, 14 years old, and he was applying to university, to college in the States. And we are having a discussion about whether or not he was going to get in. And obviously we don't know if we're going to get in or not, but my grandma Harriet, the positive upbeat one, was saying Adam is definitely going to get in. He's got the grades, he's got the personality, he's going to nail his interviews, and he's going to get into school. And Adam was so encouraged by that, and he was so excited that somebody believed that he was going to get in, right? Grandma Ellie, on the other hand, said, you know what? She took out her book of colleges, and she said, you know what? The 50th percentile GPA grade point average is 98.6, and you have 97.3. So, it doesn't look good on the grades. And I don't think personality matters too much. They say the interview process is only a very small component of what gets you in, and your SAT score is too low. And basically, Adam, I just don't see it. I don't think you're going to get into school. And, Adam's a great person, but he was visibly upset. So what I'm trying to say here, and by the way, the story has a happy ending. He did get into the school that he wanted to. So
Yay.
Grandma Harriet was right and Grandma Ellie was wrong. But what I'm saying here is that when you promote the negative, when you are a negative person, those actions have consequences, not only for yourself and the way that you feel, but for the people around you, the people that you love the most, right? So in that scenario, my brother clearly didn't want to talk to Grandma Ellie anymore. He was not her biggest fan in that moment, because she was making him feel badly about the situation, right? Whereas opposed to Grandma Harriet, he wanted to just talk more about the confidence booster that she was giving him about why he wanted to get in, right? So like I said in the beginning, to you and I, it's obvious why we'd want to be like Grandma Harriet, but for those like Grandma Ellie, think about it in terms of how your behavior is impacting the people you love the most. So
That's pretty. I love the way you tell stories. Do you use that in your work? Do you sort of like
yes.
give like real life examples?
Yes, so stories are everything for me. And even in, I write books about positivity and happiness and personal development. In very traditional sense, it's self-help, but it's through creative storytelling. I don't just say, here's the advice, I tell stories about it. So that's really important to me.
Yeah, because my book was on positive changes, and I'm a bit like you, that it's like almost like multiple choice. I don't say there's one way. There's loads of way for my
Yes.
many years of existence on this earthly plane.
Yeah.
But I like it that you say like there is storytelling. It's kind of like choose your own adventure and things like that.
Exactly. You're able to feel the advice as opposed to just be told it straight up, and it
Yeah.
it 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 reduces some of the stress sometimes, right? If we don't make positive changes by following advice, then that can sometimes add even more stress to our lives. But if you just hear this nice story and you smile at it and you laugh at it and you resonate with it, and you make the changes on your own, sometimes that can reduce some of the stress that comes along with actually making a change.
Yeah, no, I love the storytelling because when I first started the podcast, it was just me, my little book, Jordan, just sitting there talking to
Uh-huh.
myself. Um,
Uh-huh.
and it has got my life stories in it, and my
Yeah.
background's nursing and
Mhm.
hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
But, you know, people would just, as you say, when you're on the outside looking in, you are in that negative place in life or that negative mindset. You're thinking, that's very
Mhm.
nice, Shelley, but is it a true story? And it is.
Mhm. Mhm.
But that's why we're here today, because actually, you know, I get people on from all walks of life and they do
Yeah.
their own stories. And I think people think, oh, actually, there might be something, you know, worth listening to.
Yeah.
Because mine's just like one book about me and
Uh-huh.
my journey.
Mhm.
But when you get other people on, there's just such
That's right.
value, isn't there?
100%. 100%. I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
So, first book had comfy in it. And then have you got the second book, the Cloud Nine?
Yes. So the second book was The Journey to Cloud Nine. That was my first story-based book. So I
Right.
did all the research. I interviewed hundreds of people, and I got to this crossroads where I had to say, do I want to do another comfy style book where I maybe make an acronym and I give suggestions for how to live a Cloud Nine life? And a Cloud Nine life is all about fulfillment and having moments of euphoria, or do I want to create a story with characters that represent different types of people, and these characters can allow readers to say, I want to be like that person, or I don't want to be like that person based on their experiences in the book. So I chose the latter. I chose to share this story, and The Journey to Cloud Nine is a documentation of a character, Jerry, who I created, his life where he made decisions based off of societal expectations and peer pressure and things around him. And you see that that life was not very beneficial for him.
Mm-hmm.
But what I also did was I show his Cloud Nine life, this dream life that he could have lived had he made decisions based off of his heart, his gut, and his intuition, right? So you're able to see
Yeah.
those two lives against one another. And the goal is for the reader to say, okay, I want my life to look like this one, or I want my life to look like this one.
So just is it a story of Jerry? Nice solid name,
Yes.
by the way. Love the name Jerry. Um,
Yeah.
is it just like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like fictitious story, or does it actually tell you how we go about to live our Cloud Nine life?
It's fictitious. It's purely fictitious. And what I did was, in order to create this story, I used all the interviews that I did, and I used some of my own story as well, because I think any writer will tell you that, you know, you have to write from what you know. And just
Yeah.
like with your story, what you wrote, it's you, right?
Yeah.
So you can only speak to your own, you can only make up so much. There has to be influence from there has to be influence from somewhere,
Yeah.
whether it's your story or your friend's story or your teacher's story or somebody's story you saw on the news. Even if you're making things up, they still have, they're rooted in something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think mine is about me, but it's just the connections I made along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's a real key thing in life, isn't it? It's the
Yeah.
connection, something bigger than ourselves, whether you call it the universe or Barbara down the road. It's very
Right.
important to connect with people, isn't it?
That's right. It's so important. So beautiful.
So, from all the stories you collated for good old Jerry,
Mm-hmm.
how do we go about living the Cloud Nine life, the euphoria, the joy?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll just share the key themes and patterns that I picked up on. And the main way is what I just expressed. You know, people who are living their Cloud Nine lives are choosing in very important decisions based on their heart, their gut, their intuition, as opposed to societal expectations, what their spouse wants them to do, what their children or parents want them to do, right? So that's
Yeah.
like the big overarching theme. But then what I also picked up on was that there are certain key patterns and characteristics of a Cloud Nine life that we need to focus on. So in the journey to Cloud Nine, it's separated based off of 9 different clouds. And the journey is
Okay.
from Cloud 1 to Cloud 2, all the way to Cloud 9. And these clouds represent the different themes we need to focus on in our life, right? So Cloud 1 is having some sort of playfulness in our everyday life. Cloud 2 is camaraderie, the importance, like you just said, Shelley, of friendship and
Yeah.
connection, right? Deborah down the road. Cloud 3 is about love, and whether that's in a romantic sense or just loving what you do, or loving your family, we have to love something, right? It
Yeah.
shows that things are much greater than just us. We need to care about other people, other activities. Um, Cloud 4 is a sense of responsibility. So again, we need to take ownership of something that is not just us. We need something else. We need a career. We need a cause that we volunteer for, that sort of thing. Cloud 5 is about benevolence, right? I just mentioned volunteering. Benevolence is about doing something for your community. So
Yeah.
people who live Cloud 9 lives, they add value to the more grandiose scheme of things. They know that they're just a small part in this very large world. Cloud 6 is empathy. So this is trying to really get inside other people's shoes. The example I give in the book is the relationship with your parents, right? And how they've been caretakers for you your whole life. And then when they get older, you end up being their caretakers maybe,
Yeah.
right? So having a sense of empathy for what other people have done for you and then trying to give something back to them in return. Cloud 7 is about career aspirations. People who live a Cloud 9 life follow a career calling that is work that they truly love and enjoy. It's that simple, as opposed to work that they think other people want them to do, right? So it comes back to that theme of what you want to do versus what
Yeah.
other people
All the
expect you
meat
to do.
patties, back to meat patties.
Exactly. That's right. And then Cloud 8 is a sense of presence. It's I call it realization. It's a realization that in this current moment you're living your Cloud 9 life. Every single step, every setback, no matter what happens, you're still on your own journey to Cloud 9 because it's all part of it, right? It's all part of the journey. And then finally, Cloud 9 is a resurgence. So even if you felt like you haven't been living on Cloud 9 up until this point, there is always an opportunity to make a change, right? Make a
Yeah.
positive change. It's a domino effect. So you can call an old friend, you can quit your job, you can do whatever it is that you've been so afraid to do for so long. It takes one
Yeah.
little change, and that's a resurgence to come back to living that Cloud 9 life that you always desired. So those 9 themes are really important to focus on as your values for how to live a Cloud 9 life.
Yeah, I love them. My background is palliative care nursing.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're saying is important, how to get the Cloud 9 life, are the regrets
Uh-huh.
they say, that they didn't do. They didn't connect to something bigger. They
Yes.
weren't of service. They didn't do a job they wanted to do. They
Right.
didn't love enough. They weren't happy enough. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's really interesting that's come up, because what makes people happy is also the regrets of the dying.
Exactly. And 2 things. One, that's what living a Cloud 9 life is all about. It's about trying to live without regret. So it's
Ah,
very much on par. And then 2, as a palliative care nurse, because I have it in my Amazon cart right now, the top 5 regrets of the dying by Bronnie.
where?
Bronnie Ware, did you read that?
I have read it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
gonna read it soon.
So
I
I've
like learning
read
in
it.
that way. Yeah, I like learning about how not to do something, right? Like just like I gave with the negativity example. If we learn about people who regretted their lives, then we can say, wow, I don't want to be like
Yeah.
that. So let me do the opposite. It's very, very impactful, very powerful.
It is, yeah. So I write about it quite a lot, because I did nursing for
Hmm.
many years. I left last year,
Yeah.
but I did
Uh-huh.
nurse for many years. And even now, I love like grief, end of life. I just think it's the most
Yeah,
poignant learning. It's
that's
beautiful.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah, it really is.
So when you work as a coach, do you do the
Uh-huh.
comfy things? Do you do the 9 lives? 9 lives. You don't work with
The,
cats, no.
no cats, no cats,
No cats allowed.
no
But do you
cats.
do you apply the book, or do you do other tools as well when you work with people?
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. I try to apply the book if I see, there's need to have a morning routine. I help people if they need a nighttime routine. They're overthinkers before bed, time management throughout the day. My coaching is really informal. I know there are a lot of coaches who believe in very, stern, structured programs for people, but that's just not my style. When I coach people, it's very much based on what they want to get out of it. And oftentimes they don't even know what they want to get out of
No.
it. So it's kind of like a on the fly program where we just figure out how to work best with one another. And then we kind of figure out, how do we live a Cloud 9 life? That's the goal. And then I have this cool made up word called imagitivitation. And this is the one commonality for all of my coaching. It's that I use my imagitivitation and I help other people use their imagitivitation to live the life that they want to live. And what it quite simply means is imagination. So what if I could already be living the life that I want to live, right? What would that look like? Who would I be friends with? What would I be doing for work? All these what if type questions. So that's imagination. And then interpretation. This is the why. Why do I want to live this kind of life? Why do I want to have these people in my life? Why do I want to do this for work? So that's the second part. The third part is about creativity. So how can we creatively make a plan to start getting you on that path to the life that you just dreamt of, right? So, is it people you need to call? Is it books that you have to read? Is it research that you have to do? What is that going to look like, and how can you plan that out? And then finally, what we kind of work on the whole time back and forth is implementation. How
Yeah.
are you treating life like an experiment, understanding what works best, what doesn't work? How are you maximizing your opportunities, going about the process, so that you are truly following through with the plan that you just created. So using the imagitivitation is the one commonality that I use in all of my coaching engagements. And it's really the thing that I use in how I write stories, how I tell stories. I could use my imagitivitation and help other people use their imagitivitation for literally everything in life. It's so powerful.
I love that. I can't pronounce it, but I love it.
It's so hard to. I've practiced a lot. I
I
mess it
mean-
up myself sometimes.
So this is purely selfish, because people that follow me on social media know that I've got really bad insomnia. So you've got comfy in the morning
Oh,
to help you
yeah.
start the day. And I'm brilliant in the mornings. I wake up, do my 5 gratitudes, rate my
Uh-huh.
day, do a
Uh-huh.
card for the day, bit of yoga, eat a healthy breakfast. Mornings, superwoman.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I read a
Uh-huh.
book, fall asleep, then wake up. Is there a comfy for the end of my day that could help me wind
I
down?
do. I do. And again, I'm not going to say I'm an expert at this, just like I'm not an expert with the morning routine or anything like that. I have a comfy in the morning. My nighttime is called C.O.Z.Y. So C.O.Z.Y is the 4-step acronym. So what C stands for, and this is more so, I'll say, Shelley, to help people fall asleep
Yeah.
rather than stay asleep. I don't really know the inner workings of staying asleep. But to help people fall asleep, the C stands for a cutoff point. So having a cutoff point for me, in my experience, has been really important. If I'm working until 10:30 at night and my bedtime is 10:45, that's not enough of a refractory period for me to, for me to wind down and
Yeah.
really get ready for bed. So my cutoff point I recommend to people is about 2 to 3 hours before you want to get to sleep. So if
Oh,
your
wow.
bedtime is 10 o'clock, try to finish working around 7 or 8. So that's first and foremost. That's really important. O, again, stands for openness. It's about reflecting on the day, right? Maybe writing down some 5 more gratitudes like you did in the morning,
Yeah.
creating that openness practice right before bed, and reflecting on the day that you had. Z stands for zenith. I like to think about positivity and happiness all the time. So zenith is my high point for the day. What was basically the happiest I've ever been during the day? What was my cloud 9 moment for that day? So that's Z. And then Y stands for you again. So it's 2 of the same things from Comfy. So you is about, what's that last thing you're going to do that puts you to sleep? And is it reading, like you just said? Is
Yeah.
it, I don't know, a little bit of TV? If you are not one of those people who are affected by the blue light, um, you kind of want to figure it out. And sometimes, actually, Shelley, I'll tell you this, Y stands for yawn.
I
So
thought it was going to be yawn. I was just like,
yes. So
damn.
so I might change it. I might change it because a lot of people think it's gonna be yawn. Um, Knowing what makes you tired is really important. So to give you a quick story, when I was in college, I had trouble falling asleep as well because I was so stimulated, and it was mainly during exam weeks I had trouble falling asleep. Um, but I knew that there was a certain textbook that when I was reading it, my eyes would just slowly fall, like slowly close. It was this big economics textbook. So sometimes when I have trouble falling asleep, I know that if I read that textbook, it's going to make me yawn and then fall asleep. So I'll just whip out some boring text and start to read it. And then, hopefully it'll help with me falling asleep. So I can't say I know how to stay asleep. I'm not sure about that.
Well, if I wake up, I'll just read the economics book,
Yeah,
be fine.
exactly. That's right. You just do C.O.Z.Y all again when you wake up.
Yeah, just keep repeating it.
Uh,
So what's the best piece of advice anyone's given you? Because you obviously give fabulous advice.
oh,
What's the
thank
best
you.
advice that's ever been given to you?
It's a wonderful question, and I like to answer it differently every time I receive it, because I don't know if there's just one best piece of advice. I keep getting great advice, but the one that's most topical for me right now, and it's taken me the longest to learn, is that it's okay for me to have a different opinion than other people. And that sounds very basic, surface level, but I'm somebody who's always, I'm very agreeable. I never want to have confrontation. My approach to personal development is it's based on what's best for you. So I clearly don't have any definitive approach. But it's okay for me to say that there is a route that I recommend, and that it's okay that I don't need to have very strong adversaries who say that that's not the right route. It doesn't mean
Yeah,
that we're going to hate each other. It doesn't mean that we're going to be enemies. It just means that we don't agree, right?
yeah,
So that's actually taken me a really long time to fully own. And for me, it's that I believe that personal development through creative storytelling is is as beneficial as it can be, for the reasons that we talked about earlier. But I had such a problem saying that because, I use regular stories sometimes. I use the traditional, self-help tools to get myself out of funks at times. But I do think, so I was afraid to take ownership of that phrase. But, you know, if I had to choose, I would go with storytelling. So now I'm getting more comfortable and confident in sharing this opinion and not worrying so much about whether or not others are going to hate me for it, so to speak.
yeah. And I think a lot of people will relate to that because we do, don't we? We
Yeah.
naturally do. And I don't think it matters if you're really confident or sassy. We do still sort of do a little bit of tipping on eggshells, don't we?
Yes. Uh-huh. Exactly. Exactly. So there's just a way to approach it, right? And he's my mentor, a great friend of mine. His name is Rich Keller. Um, he basically kind of said, like, you're not somebody that, as long as you don't approach it in a way that's very aggressive, and there's a way to approach it so that people are just going to disagree with you and still like you, and share, maybe think about your message, but that you're not going to do something in a way that they're going to try to destroy your career.
Yeah.
So it's about approach and delivery and things like that.
Fabulous. So what is next for you? You've done this book about Jerry. What is
Yeah.
next?
So next, book wise, is a book that'll come out in March 2021 called What Happens in Tomorrow World. And it's about navigating uncertainty. And it's a short parable about four different characters in a giant crane game. Have you ever played like a crane game where
No.
you drop the crane and the crane opens up and you get a toy?
Oh
Um,
yeah, like a
in an
grabber.
arcade. Yeah,
Yeah,
grabber.
grabber.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, different.
I
Sorry,
was on
we're
the
in
building site when you
country.
said crane. I was like, oh,
Oh,
what do
no,
they
no,
do
no.
in
Well,
America?
kind of like that. Well, kind of like that. So yeah, the grabber comes down, and these four characters, the prizes within the game, have four different responses to uncertainty. So one, just like my grandma, is very positive. One is very negative, and the other two actually relate to my grandpa's. One is very chill and indifferent, and one is very wise, very sage, very spiritual in his approach. So that's next. And again, it's all about relatability. How are you relating to the characters and saying, wow, I should be more like this character. I want to be more like that character. I don't want to be like that character. And you'll see how that story unfolds and why it's important. So that's the next book. And then for the next, about year, it's just all about helping people, building my platform through storytelling, using the imagitivitation to help other people, and really to help myself um, live this life that we so desire.
That's fabulous. So how can people
Yeah.
reach you? Are you on Facebook and things like
So
that?
LinkedIn is my number one place to be.
Okay.
I answer all my messages on LinkedIn, and it's Jordan Gross on LinkedIn.
Fabulous. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. It's been gorgeous. I do love another positive person.
Yes, me too, Shelley. Thank you so much for your
Bless
time
you.
and for having me on. And stay safe, okay?
I will do. Thank you for all your tips,
Thanks.
techniques. I'm going to go off and do what's it? My cozy.
Yes, cozy nighttime. Uh-huh.
Bless you. Keep doing
Perfect.
what you're doing.
Thank you. You
All
too.
right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please ensure you subscribe and do leave a positive review. If you would like to create your own positive changes, head on over to shelleyfnight.com and you can buy yourself a copy of Positive Changes, a self-cookbook. If you want some positivity until the next show, come join us over on Facebook. That's Shelley F. Knight, Life Goes On. So I've been Shelley F. Knight, and as always, you've been amazing.